How's it going, everybody? I'm Josh, KI6NAZ, and for a long time, I have recommended hamstudy.org, a fantastic website to study for your amateur radio license. Technician, General, Extra, they got you covered with really nice practice exams that track your progress and will show you, as you take more of them, what you're not so great at and guide you by giving you a little bit more of those tougher questions that you need to work on. Now, it's available on a free website, but they also have a mobile app that's for your phone, your tablet, Android, iOS, whatever. And I've got some friends with me today. I've got Richard, KD7BBC, and Ben, KF7KGR, and there's a big update to hamstudy.org's phone app, iPad app, or tablet. You tell me what it runs on. But why don't we just start off by giving us a little bit of background on what you guys have done, why you did it, what's this all about? Who wants to go first?
We built the original Ham Study app about 7 years ago, and it's done a lot of time. We have not done any major rewrites in that 7 years, and it's remained pretty stable. But there's also been a couple of warts and some really, really hairy warts that have just crept up over time, and they've been hard to maintain. And we wanted to finally address some of that stuff. And the best way to go about doing that was to start from scratch and build it over.
A whole scratch rebuild. So you can't just tell me it's all back-end bug fixes. There's more features that you've added too, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
One of the reasons that we needed to do this is the kind of the infrastructure, the frameworks that we used on the previous app just ended up being so difficult to troubleshoot when we had issues that we were almost afraid to add anything new into it. We just didn't have enough time. In fact, the last time we were really putting a major effort getting ready to do this was early 2020, when suddenly we were doing social distancing and suddenly exam tools was in high demand, and my whole, all of my priorities just got turned on their heads. And so that pushed everything back. But we've got a lot of things that have been in the pipeline of things that we wanted to improve, both from feature recommendations from features.hamstudy.org, as well as things that we envision that we want to see. But it was just too difficult to add those things in. Even some things that should have been very simple, like zooming the image, zooming the figures on the questions, is one of the most requested features. And we just could not find an easy way to do that wasn't going to take more time to do than the feature was actually worth. And so as time has gone on and operating system updates and library updates and everything have just made it less and less stable, and this has become more and more important. But Ben's joined me full time here in the last few months, whereas previously it's been a side project for him, and it used to be for me as well. And so we've been able to focus more on this, and we are very, very close, and it's super exciting. There's some new stuff, and there's a lot of just everything works better, everything is faster, everything is what you expect, or at least closer to what you expect.
I love it. Well, we should also mention, Richard, you kind of hit that. If you guys took your test, everybody watching, by the way, thanks for watching. If you took your test online, it's likely thanks to Richard and exam tools. Ben, did you help with exam tools?
I've helped a little bit here and there over the years. Richard and I have worked together for a long time. I've known him for about 25 years, and throughout that time, we've worked on things here and there. But in the current version, I've only had a very small hand. So it's mostly not me. It's mostly all him.
But an incredibly important point, everybody remember that exam tools was largely thanks to this guy when we were all stuck dealing with that thing that happened a couple of years ago, and you tested online. You owe it to Richard here. But let's take a look at this cool app. So I have it on my iPhone, and just walk me through it. So I'm looking at the new kind of front home page, and you can see it saying pick a license to start testing, and I see other exams down there. That's something have you always had other exams?
It's been there.
It has been there? Okay.
Traditionally, it originally just had the FCC commercial pools. And then later on, we added the Canadian pools. And then in the last few years, we've added the New Zealand pools and the Mexico pool. And as of today, like in the last hour, in fact, we now have the Argentina pools.
Yeah, I see that right there
have
on
just
top.
been added on there. And that is one really cool thing a lot of people don't realize about the Ham Study app is this actually automatically pulls updates from the website. So we every time as we get close to switch over on the question pool, again, see some of the issues I talked about earlier with maintenance and everything. Releasing a new version of the app was really difficult. It required me to get everything working again with the whole build process, and new libraries come out and Xcode had updated. And now I had to go through all of this again just to get a simple version release out. With the updated question pools, but I didn't need to do that because the app would automatically connect to the website, at least as long as you connected when you had an internet connection, connects to the website, says, oh, hey, there's a new question pool, and has it presented there to download. And so it's always interesting as we get closer that people would then start contacting us. Do you have the latest question pools? Do you have the latest question pools? There hasn't been an update. And well, yeah, they're already there. We didn't need to do an app update because the app just handles that.
That's nice. And of course, even if you're offline, it's still tracking your progress and all that stuff. Now, does that progress then also link once you get back online back to the mothership, the mother database, if you will?
As long as you have attached it to a hamstudy.org account, which I highly recommend, it will synchronize your progress whenever you're connected. And of course, as you kind of alluded to, it doesn't just reference the things online, it does actually download those updates and the question pools and everything. So you may need to be connected to the internet to get the initial question pool download.
Sure.
But as users update the explanations, which are all crowdsourced, or as question pool updates are released, sometimes the question pool committee will withdraw a question, or when they release a new pool, those updates will automatically be found, and a little icon will appear to indicate that there's an update. When you click on the pool to go in, it will download the latest explanations, it will download the latest question pools, and then it will be there. Excellent. And if you're not connected to the internet, it just won't see that there's an update, but everything will still work.
And you don't need to worry about setting up your Ham Study account right away. If you download the app to just try it out, you do a bunch of studying, and then you decide, you know what, I want to get this onto another device. If you go and create a Ham Study account then and sync it, everything you've done before will get synced into that new account, and you won't lose anything. And that works for all the pools as well. It's not just the US pools. It works for Argentina or any of the other ones.
It's just like when you buy a car and you say, can I get the extended warranty later? And you can. It's just like that, right? So you can catch up on it later if you need to. I love it. So what's one of your favorite new features? Or let's just start going down the list because you guys know all about this, and we'll walk through it live for the viewers.
So one simple one that you can see from this page is go ahead and click on that drop-down arrow where it says your name.
Got it.
There's an add a user button down below. So we've had some people studying with their families, sharing an iPad or something, and they want to have each person having their own study. Well, now you can do that. You can add an account for each of your kids, for whoever else that you share the device with, and everybody can have their own progress, and it's not going to share between each other. And if you each have your own Ham Study account, you can sync that across for each individual user on that device.
That is actually something that is highly useful for our family. My wife is studying for her general, but my oldest son wants to study for technician. And we were kind of playing this ping pong game between phones, but he's not with me all the time, or he's with my wife, whatever. So that's perfect, because then we can have both of his accounts linked to our phones, and then there you go. So that's great. I love that. That's a handy feature.
I mean, let's drill into the technician pool.
Okay.
So general, pick a pool.
All right, technician it is. Oh, all right. So there's some handy tool tips here on top.
Yep. Now let's scroll up.
Okay, I think I've got to click through these.
Yeah, it looks like you've used the app before.
I have.
So the experience is a little bit different from what a new user would see. But if you scroll up, you can see it says that you are studying with the Fast Track exam manual. So click on that little gear in the top right. There's a drop down here that shows you all the different books that you can study with that we have a layout for. We've got ARRL, we've got Gordon West, we've got Ham Radio School, and we've got Fast Track Ham. The way this works is the first time you come into a pool, it's going to ask you, are you using one of these books? And if you are, you say yes, you pick which one you're using. And then let's go ahead and go back out of here.
So stick with the Fast Track then?
Stick with Fast Track, that's great. Or you pick ARRL, pick a different one if you want to look at it. In fact, go ahead and pick ARRL.
Sure. All right, ARRL, very good.
And then click on that blue read button.
Okay.
normally you would have seen this listing sub-element T1, T2, T3, but that's not what it's doing anymore. It's showing you chapter 1, chapter 2. So we've got all the questions laid out the exact same way they are in the book that you're using. So click into chapter 3 or something.
Okay.
We've also got it broken down by sections.
Oh.
And in some cases, we'll show you which page numbers it is that you're referencing. So one thing that I really enjoyed at Hamvention this year was whenever people would come up to me and say, hey, I love your app. I use Ham Study with book X or Y or Z. And now we can say, great, the app is right there with you. And
right
if you say, I just finished chapter 3, you can come and do a quiz on chapter 3 without having to do anything confusing or custom to try and figure out which questions should I be looking at. You can just come in here and say, chapter 3, let's go.
Let me ask you a question, because this is always something I find fascinating, is how people learn. So for me, when I did my licenses back whenever, I would do the practice exams, or I would just listen to audiobooks or whatever and just kind of brute force my way into it. Are you finding that people are getting a book and they're reading chapter 3 and then they're wanting to drill on chapter 3 specifically? Is that something you've heard from feedback?
So this one is, there are a lot of different ways that people learn.
Oh, yeah.
And which is most common, really, it varies from group to group. It varies depending on who your mentors or your Elmers are. In the Ham Radio Crash Course group, I think probably the most common thing that I've seen is people who just get Ham Study and they just go through the questions. And it's just, let's just brute force it. Let's learn the questions. Let's learn what the answers are. And I talk to a lot of people who kind of look down on people who do that, and I don't agree with that perspective, because, well, the perspective is that it's the ham radio hobby, and we need to learn, and you need to know what you're doing, and I agree with all of that.
The sanctimony of the question pool. You must learn all the material.
Well, when I got my technician license, and this was probably about 25 years ago, I think I was 15, I had the Now You're Talking ARRL book, technician book.
Yeah.
I had gotten it from a friend who got his license first, and so he passed it on to me. And I studied that for 3 or 4 months and didn't do all that great on the test, and I don't feel like I really learned all that much on it. Like, I did pass the test, but it wasn't reading the book that helped me pass the test.
Okay.
Now, my father got his license in 1976. His father got his license in 1948. I had people to learn from. And so when I started learning was after I got my license and when I started doing things. When I got my general license, I flat out memorized. Like, I didn't even pretend that I was learning anything at all. Literally what happened is, that was back when you still had to pass the 5 words a minute general. It had dropped from 13, and so Morse code, I mean. It dropped from 13. Everything had to be, to anything past technician, you had to pass the 5 words a minute. And I had done so. I practiced, and I passed the Morse code. And 11 and a half months later, now keep in mind that the CSCE for doing that is only valid for 12 months. A year after it's issued, it's no longer valid. So if you don't get your general within a year, you'll have to take the code again in order to get the general. And I realized, oh crap, tonight's the last night that there is a test session. Now, this was probably at about 3:00 p.m.
Oh boy.
Session was 20 minutes drive away from there in Provo at 7 p.m.
Okay.
So that was the first time that I actually figured out where the question pools come from. It is not ARRL. They're a great organization and they help, but they are not the ones who run the question pools. And so I downloaded the text file from the NCVEC website for the general pool. And this is the first time I had ever actually looked at the questions, at the actual question pool. And I opened it up in a text editor and I read, okay, it's, G1A01C or whatever the letter was. And then I read the question and I read the correct answer. And I did that for 45 minutes.
No way.
And I was out of time. I'd gotten most of the way through the pool. And I was like, well, okay, I guess we'll see what happens. Probably won't work, but gotta try. So drove down, took the exam from the man who is now my father-in-law. He was not at the time.
This is a wild story. This is getting crazier.
And I passed. I have no idea what my score was. I mean, I think I was 17 at the time.
He really wanted you to marry his daughter. That's why he passed you. Of course he did it. Of course he did it. That's a joke.
I knew her at that time, but not very well.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, in fact, at that point, I'm not sure I have mild face blindness, and I only ever saw Soraya and her sister Cindy at these ham radio events, when we were doing things, and I never really talked to them directly much. I couldn't remember which sister was which for a long time. I don't get them confused anymore.
Good.
Anyway, I digress. So yes, I ended up passing, and then I had to call my father and ask him to find my CSCE and bring it down to me, because I didn't have it. I had my ID, but I didn't have my CSCE, and so I was like, without that, I won't be able to get it issued. And so that's the way that I got my general originally.
This is before FRN numbers, everybody listening. You use your FRN now, right? Pretty much, yeah.
Well, a lot of it, but at the time, and now you don't need a CSCE generally because anything is immediately recorded. But at the time, when you passed the code and you hadn't passed the element 3, then you didn't have a license. And so if that code CSCE expired, the element 1 CSCE expired, then you would have to take it again in order to get it.
Gotcha.
And so this was like my last chance, and I passed.
Good.
But the main thing with that, though, is I can now pass that test every single time. I don't ace it. I can generally pretty close to ace the technician. Mm-hmm. I can pass the general every time because I've learned that stuff since then. But I couldn't then. So are you going to tell me that I have no impact on the community for the good because I memorized on that test?
There you go. Shots fired. There you go.
It is not
good point.
Nearly so important how you get licensed. It's important what you do with it. And so with ham study, that's always been kind of my goal. The original version of what eventually evolved into ham study was literally, I wrote a little PHP script which just parsed through that text file and converted it to a format that I could actually display on a web page.
Right.
And it just had the question with the correct answer highlighted. Because that's how I studied for my general. And I used that for my extra, actually. I studied that for 4 hours and did the same thing. It is a very underrated method, is to just read the question and the correct answer, ignore the distractors, because then you recognize it when you see it.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But my goal has always been to meet people where they are. Mm-hmm. It's like, however you want to study, I want to help you do that. Now, there are a lot of studies that show that one of the most effective ways to reinforce learning is to be quizzed on that information. And I don't care if this is a class, or if you're watching a YouTube video, if you're reading a book. After you go through the material, be quizzed on that material, and you will remember it better. I mean, this is scientific fact. I mean, there's lots of studies. This has been shown again and again and again.
Yep.
And we have these questions. What we haven't had, or we didn't used to have, is an efficient way of doing that. And I'm going to kind of pick a little bit of a bone on you in public, so I hope you'll forgive me.
Okay.
But you introduced all of this with talking about studying using, like the ham study has practice exams. Well, we do have practice exams, but that's the least interesting and the least important thing that we have.
What? That's the way I did it. So what? Okay.
I'm very sorry.
Okay.
So Ben and I ran these numbers again just in the last few hours. I wrote a little script that what it does is it generates random practice exams using the same algorithm that exam tools and ham study use. So these are real exams that you could actually get. Mm-hmm. Completely random, using a cryptographically secure random number generator. Because if you're going to do something, you should over-engineer it to the point of ridiculous.
You got a hardware crypto seed?
No, it's using the Linux crypto seeds, which is basically
not truly random.
it is cryptographically secure, however.
Okay.
It's fed by entropy from all the stuff that's going on. Anyway, it's very cool and very secure and good enough for our purposes.
Yes.
Better than just a Mersenne twister pseudo-random number generator.
Right.
But you don't want to get me on that topic because, yeah, anyway. I could tell you stories. So 50,000 runs where it would randomly generate practice exams and keep track of what questions were on them, keep generating exams until every question in the question pool has shown up at least one time on that practice exam.
Okay.
Not until you got it right, because this isn't even trying to answer it. This is just trying to see every exam. Would you like to take a guess on the 2022 technician pool? How many practice exams do most people see before, in order to see every question single time?
55.
You're low.
Low. Wow. Okay. 100.
Now you're high.
Oh, okay.
So you've got, mean, median, mode, right?
Yeah.
The most common, the mode was, where is it, Ben? 70, I believe. 70 random practice tests. Now, the least that our random number generator ever created, and this is in 50,000 iterations.
Right.
Ben, I think yours was 41, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mine was 42. So it needed, in theory.
Case.
In theory, the best case is you could do it in 14 practice exams that were custom made, which would basically not repeat any questions, which means that nothing that you learned in the previous ones is going to help you.
Right.
Which, by the way, I have seen reduce people to tears because I used to have a mode that would do that. But 14 practice exams is the minimum that you need.
Okay.
Because we take one question at random from each of the sections. And the largest section in the tech pool has 14 questions in it, if I remember right. I might be off by one. But the minimum we ever saw was 41.
So I see where you're going. I see where you're going because, yeah, you generally need to reiterate something a few times before it kind of sticks in your brain. Yeah. And you'd have to take a whole lot of practice exams versus kind of where we're at right here, looking at this the chapter approach, is you could drill on one chapter until you feel real good with it.
Not only that, but Ham Study's study mode is not a practice exam. Right. And that's terminology that confuses people sometimes. In my world, in my mind, and maybe I need to find better terminology to explain this to people, because it's clearly something that despite my best efforts over the last 10 years, is not sticking in the general, nomenclature or whatever. A practice exam is a benchmark. This is how you get an idea of how close am I, and it's a very important thing. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of value in a practice exam because this is a realistic look of how you might do if you took an exam right now.
Right.
But it's not an effective way to study because it's random, because it's not targeted. And so Ham Study's study mode will track what you've seen, and it will repeat things as you need to kind of help you learn it.
Right.
But it will also go through it and make sure that you see all of the questions. And that's where one of the big differences are. I'm not an author. Ben is not an author. Ben's probably a better author than I am, being an English major, but
that probably helps.
That's not, we're good at software. And so we set out to solve problems using software.
Right.
What we can solve with software is we can solve the problem of efficiently using the materials that we have. We can't necessarily solve with software a full training system, although I'd love to eventually add one into Ham Study. But what we can do is we can make it work with existing, more effectively with existing training systems that are out there, like with these various books. So if you are using the books, you go through the material, then you can go into the Ham Study app, which is, in my admittedly biased, but not necessarily wrong opinion, the most effective way to, an efficient way to go through the questions. You open it up and you say, hey, this is what I want to study. So let's go back to the app.
All right.
You've seen the first version of this. Go back to the study mode.
Okay, so I'm going to click the hamburger menu, and then where do I go? Do I just click study?
Yep, just click study.
All right, so we're studying.
So go ahead and follow that guide thing that it had with tapping the icon in the top right.
Okay.
To open up that. The hint was customize your study, etc. So tap on the question filter.
Question filter. Got it.
Now, say we just studied chapter 3.
All right.
So you can now tap chapter 3. And when you tap out of there, it now shows, well, we've got 92 questions that can be selected. And now it's going to give us progress. It's going to select questions from that book. And it's going to do it if we leave it in sequential order. It'll do it in the order that they appear in the book as well.
So again, to follow on with what we're doing, this is the ARRL study guide in the order that it is given in their publication. Mm-hmm. So when you see T5A01, that is the sub-element for the general test, which matches the question, but it's in the order that the book gives it.
Correct.
That's pretty handy.
And it's selecting the questions that you've just been exposed to as you went through that chapter.
Right.
And if you tap on the tap on that icon again, the graph icon.
No, I'm like, that's fine. I got to answer it, right?
No, that's perfect. So you can see there on the study progress.
I've seen 1%. Now. Yes.
That now, 1%. But look at the column labels. This is
labels.
3.1a, 3.1b.
Oh, yes, it's breaking it down into the chapters.
It's breaking it down, and it's giving you the study progress. Whereas traditionally, and on the website, it's going to give everything to you in the order of the question pool. Now you can see how you were doing both on scene percentage and an aptitude on your progress through this book.
Got it. Okay, cool. And it also looks like there at the very bottom, it's saying 92 of 411 questions. That means like what I've seen, I'm guessing, or is that's the limitation?
That's the filter.
That's the filter.
So you've selected chapter 3.
Got it.
And there are 92 questions in that.
Got it.
And that's good feedback. Maybe we'll have to revisit again how to display that. It is surprisingly difficult to figure out how to display information like that in a unambiguous way without using a lot of space.
You want me to tell you exactly how I think
people understand?
I think you just take the 92 over 41 and put it right next to question filter, like the label title.
You mean like to the right, just to the right of question filter?
Yep. Because then
that's a thought.
It's implying exactly what you apply to filter to.
We will play with that. And so for anybody watching, if things don't look exactly the same when you actually get the app, that's because we are still making changes as we get feedback on this. We've been making changes daily based on the feedback we've gotten from the beta users that have started using the app in the last week.
Yeah, since I'm here too, can I click the explain button just to...
No.
No, don't want me to do that?
Go ahead.
Go for it. There's actually 3 things to do.
So this gives you a little bit of background as well, which Leia loves these. If you listen to the Hammerdoe Crash Course podcast, we like to click on the little tab or click on the explain and give a little background. And I like that you have the update there and who did it. From Happy Day KT updated the field here for people.
And that's just the last person who made the update.
Yeah.
Someday I need to improve how all that works, but it hasn't really been the focus because the focus of the explanations is not to give everybody credit who contributed. The focus is to help people study and learn.
What if you made a voting system on the back end of the explains where only the best ones can raise to the top, but then it'll turn into like Ampere's is Bodie McBoatface or something like that of the explanations because it's a voting system. So you know how that goes.
On my list of all of the things that I need to do, which is, a very extensive list at this point. But one of the items on that list is to revamp how our explanations work. And I want to be able to have different types of explanations. At some point, I'd love to have like an in-app purchase or something where you can buy explanations that were contributed by an actual author who does this for a living and therefore knows what they're doing.
That's cool.
I
like
so
that
like
idea.
You could have like the paid explanation, or you have the contributed explanation, you have study hints. With this new extra pool that's just come out, I had to keep rejecting explanations for several weeks.
I bet.
Because they would submit something and it would be, remember this by looking at these words and making this,
this crazy
and it's
just
a
device.
It's a mnemonic or a memory aid. And there is nothing wrong with that.
That's true, yeah.
But as soon as you contribute that, as soon as that explanation is in there, it takes it off the list of here's all of the questions that don't have explanations yet. And don't want it removed from that until we actually have an explanation. So what I finally actually ended up doing just last week is there were 10 left, and I just went in and did them myself. I had to do some research on some of them because I didn't understand them well enough.
Yeah,
but
extra be like that. Extra is like that. It can be tough. Many of the questions are very tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hear you. What else is left to click on since we're here on this this page?
There are two things here I want to have you look at. One is click on that globe next to T5A01.
The globe. Oh, buddy. Does it do it? Oh, look at that. That's super cool. Is this just one language, or can you have multiple languages, or is there? What do you think?
So there is only one official translation of the question pool, which is the one that was done for the hams in Puerto Rico by hams in Puerto Rico and Spain.
Smart hams.
There's kind of a team there. This is not something that most people know. There are some teams who are set up to do exams in the Spanish language. Now, in order to do that, all three administering VEs have to be fluent in Spanish, and they need to have a system that can let them give the exam in Spanish.
I didn't know that. That's a fun fact.
Yeah, because not a lot of people, most people don't know how to study that. You can actually study for them on the Ham Study website, but it's not actually linked on the main page. So like if you click on technician and then you add ES to the end of the URL, it will take you to the Spanish version of those pools. That's just for the main ones. And in fact, the new extra pool, we don't have the Spanish translation is not finished yet. I have a first draft that we just got up yesterday. So the people working on it are still doing that. So I think there's a lot that I'd love to see done on internationalization for these question pools, but since the Spanish language stuff is there, I wanted to get that in there, especially for the hams who are in Spanish-speaking territories of the United States. Like, they are actually territories of the United States. That is their native language, and like everybody there, that's their native language. They ought to have tools that they can use. And so this is great. This is, I think, a kind of a big thing, and I'm hoping it will maybe get a little more attention on the need to do some of this.
I love that.
But there's a lot of complexity, so it's not going to be a fast thing. But this is just kind of my way of pushing things just a little bit at a time to improve some of that.
All right, Ben, what's the second thing I click on?
So below the card, look where it says one attempt and has a green checkbox. So go ahead and press next.
Okay.
We don't have anything there yet. So one question that we get a lot from users is, why am I seeing this question? I've already seen this question before. So we wanted to give you the tool to answer that question for yourself. You're going to see the card again until you stop getting it wrong. If you're getting it wrong more than you're getting other things wrong, we're going to keep bringing it back to you. So this will always show, how many times have I seen this question? How am I doing it? Am I getting it right all the time? Am I getting it wrong more or half the time? You'll be able to just look at that and see. And that will show up everywhere that you see the question in an answered format. So if you go into read by chapter 3 again, it's going to show you that same information for all the questions.
Actually, before you do that, why don't you just randomly answer a bunch of these questions? Get a bunch of them wrong.
Okay, I'm getting them wrong on purpose, everybody watching. It's definitely resistance. Oh, it was current the whole time.
Man. I knew you didn't know what you're doing.
I knew that the comments are coming right now. So what do I do now? Hit next?
Yeah, just hit next.
Okay.
So just do that a bunch of times until that question shows up again.
Okay, so we'll just keep going, right? What of the following describes alternating current?
Don't even read them. Just tap and go through.
I can't fail. Oh, there it is.
Probably about 5 more.
Okay. I'm just clicking anywhere, guys. Don't at me. I'm actually stopping to look slightly at the. Oh, there it is.
Here we go.
Got it.
Look at that.
Okay.
You can see one previous attempt.
Yeah.
So the big thing with this is there's so many questions that are really familiar. People frequently question, hey, why is the selection algorithm giving me the same thing over and over and over again? I haven't seen these others, etc. I want people to be able to tell what they've seen before and see for themselves that things are working right. Because every time that I've dug into that, it's turned out that it was working correctly, but there's just this, it feels like you're not, because things are a little too familiar, or, etc.
I love that it's showing the 2 attempts. How many attempts will it show? Now that I've gotten it right once, if I get it right again, will it keep just adding more of the check
more
marks?
than you should ever do. It will just keep going. So until it runs out of space, it will keep going.
Cool. Does it? I thought it was. I think it might be limited to 10.
Oh, maybe it is. That's probably just how many extra life. Yeah, you're right.
It's going to be one or the other.
Oh, see now, yeah.
Yeah. Man, Josh, I know. I thought you knew this stuff. I mean,
I suck at this.
Gosh.
I got my failed attempt.
And you teach people.
All right.
If you what do they say? If you can't do, teach. That's what they say, right? I think that's what they say.
There are people who say that, yes. So go ahead and go back to the hamburger menu. Go to read.
Okay, we're going to read questions. Yeah.
And chapter 3.
Sticking with 3 there.
And into section 3.1a.
Okay, so we're gonna click through these.
Yeah. And so now you can look through and you can see.
You can see just the right answers and your attempts that you made.
And how you've done on them.
Current, of course.
Now, back to that explanation, the story that I told you on how I studied. Use the top right button.
Okay, top right.
And this is not a new thing, but click hide distractors.
Oh, buddy.
I think a lot of people just never even notice that that's there. It's been there forever. It's on the main website.
Look at that.
I mean, if you want the fastest way to cram, like, I'm out of time, I just need to do the best I can with what little time I've got left.
Yep.
This is it. Just go through, read the question and the correct answer, because even if you don't understand any of what it says, that will be the only one that's familiar to you, because the wording is exactly the same.
I was just going to use the word familiarity. That's exactly what this is. Because honestly, the test, just everybody watching, the test has some tricky questions that are written in a way that are kind of designed to look similar to right answers. Not all the time, but this is fantastic, because then you get the familiarity. Yeah, I love that. Very cool.
Well, and unfortunately, a lot of the worst questions have been getting filtered out. One of the cool things with exam tools picking up in popularity, not just with remote exams, but with in-person exams as well, is, a lot of the teams use it because it simplifies their life. It makes everything faster. All the paperwork can be digital. Things get processed faster. There's a lot of really nice things for the volunteer examiners. But one thing a lot of them don't even think about is, since I have all of that information in this system, I can aggregate that. And so when the question pool committee starts saying, okay, we're looking to revise this next question pool, and this has happened for the last 2 updates, they come to me and say, hey, can you give us stats on what's happening? And I can say, okay, for this question, it showed up on this many actual exams, not practice exams, but actual exams that people took. And this is how many people answered each question. And so they can look for outliers on, which distractors are throwing people off more often than they should, which ones are never chosen, and they can find the outliers, whether the question's too easy or too hard.
I love the metrics that you potentially have by going, particularly with exam tools, in helping make a better test. Because I think that there are some people who view the test as almost being too hard in some areas, and I think it's because of the distractors and some of the other things that actually do take away from just the better. Memorization is probably the wrong term, because yes, you can always memorize even bad tests, but the logical answer to a question, there's too many confusing parts to it. So I love that. I love that.
Well, and there is one question in the extra class question pool where at least a dozen times somebody has emailed me and said, hey, you've got a problem on your website. All 4 questions here are the same, or all 4 answers are the same. Or some of them say, oh, these 3 are the same, are different, but these 2 are the same. They're not. All 4 are different, but the difference is very subtle. There's 2 different words, but like the first 2 have that's it's switched on the 4, and it's just one or the other on the first half and one or the other in the second half of the sentence.
Just enough to mess with you.
Yeah, and when people email me, I just have to respond. It's like, okay, go read the question again. Now read it again. Now read it again. Now read it one more time, and you might notice, because it is that bad. I mean, the first few times, like even when I knew what it was, it would sometimes take me 20 to 30 seconds to find exactly where the difference was. Because it's a long answer and it looks the same. Personally, I think they should have removed that question. Unfortunately, they did not. Yeah. I'm not on the question pool committee, so
yeah.
I'm sure they have their reasons why they decided they wanted to leave it on there.
Yeah.
But there's never going to be anything that's perfect. But I think the group is doing the best they can. I think they're doing a pretty good job, and I'm really pleased that we are able to start applying actual data to those results, because previous to that, the only information they had to make a decision on what needed to change was what rules have changed, what new things have come out that maybe we need to think about, what things have dropped and are no longer really relevant, and what are people whining about,
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not a lot to work with.
All right. So have we exhausted this area? What should we hit next?
Let's see. Sharing?
Sure.
Okay.
We can do sharing.
What do I do?
You said that this is one
I'm go on exams. I mean, they're pretty straightforward.
What do I do?
Yeah, do we need to look at practice exams? I don't think practice exams have changed much. They're practice exams.
We added that awesome one filter to see just the questions that you got right, or just the questions you got wrong.
That's true.
So take a practice exam. You'll like it after you've studied. No, I don't mean you right now. I mean your viewers.
Okay. Take a practice exam.
You can see you can resume an exam or you can start a new exam.
Yeah, that's handy. And you can do that for any of the license pools.
Yeah.
Yep.
So go ahead and go back to
the pool list.
Back to the pool list.
Okay.
Now, there in the top right, there's a button, which you're on a small screen, and so you can't see the label on that. But that little guy by a chalkboard, that is the sharing dashboard. Now, this has been in the mobile app for a while.
Okay.
But a lot of people have not known about it. So go ahead and do request to see progress.
Okay.
Put in my call sign, KD7BBC. That's my username. Don't tell anyone.
Okay. Your secret is safe with everybody.
And I have accepted your request. So now go back to the pool list. All right. So sorry about that little blip. We did find a minor issue that we're going to have to fix. This is why it's good to do live demos, because everything that can go wrong will go wrong during a live demo. It's an invaluable tool for troubleshooting any app. But now that the shared study progress has been set up, I'm sharing my study progress with you. We'll see just how bad my stats are, because I use mine a lot the way that I've been showing you. Now you should see there your viewing stats 4. There's the amateur extra is selected.
Yes.
Tap on that and go to technician, I think.
Oh, look at that.
All right, so now you've got, this is my study progress. You can see I've just done a ton of really in-depth studying, but I didn't have anybody better to share with you right this second. So,
look at this little graph.
But yeah, so you can see how I'm doing across the board. You can see my strongest sub-elements, my weakest sub-elements, my practice exam history. Now, if you scroll up, share stats following, I think, I can't read that very well.
Yeah.
Instead of question pool error. So now change that to the ARL book.
Oh, it'll reorder.
And now it will reorder and display based on that. So we want to expand this functionality quite a bit, but this is functionality that's mostly parity with just a few improvements over what has been in the app, which is our starting point. And then we'll be able to make some more improvements a little more quickly. But you mentioned that your kids studying. When my 2 oldest sons are now licensed, and when they were studying, I had them share their progress with me, and then I could go in and I could see, and you can see at the top, Richard was last active on this date studying this question pool. So you can see when they last studied, and you can see where their progress is. So this would be great for people in a class who are, if you're doing a class, this is great for parents with their kids. If you're mentoring a friend, just any time that you're trying to help somebody study or study with other people, this is a great tool for that.
This reminds me of like Steve Goodgame, K5ATA, right? Where he's talking to the teachers who may be leading like a ham club back at their hometown, and they have a group of kids that are studying. They can use this to find areas where they need more help. And they can turn into an actual demonstration type classroom environment. I mean, I could even see Gordon West using something like this to point like overall, like where should he, think about having more demonstrations and fun things that show amateur radio in use. This is great. This is really helpful.
Ben and I both used to work I actually still do work for a company called GradeCam, and formative assessment is a really big term in education. In education technology, and just in teaching in general. And so that's part of what this is intended to do, is give you immediate feedback on how people are doing.
Right.
So that you can, so you have people, maybe you have them take a test, maybe you have them, just spend 30 minutes going through, and you can see how are you doing on this. There's a lot of things we really need to improve to make this more useful as far as an actual like formative assessment tool. Like maybe some things we've toyed with are maybe being able to give everybody the same practice exam, for example, or set things up that you share with your students so that they can go and study that. The nature of the algorithm, it teaches as it goes, and so it's more useful for seeing what they've studied than it is for seeing what they understand, since the things that they don't understand, it just drills them on until they do understand it.
Right. Or potentially aggregate like 5 people together and then show the metrics of the 5.
So there's a lot of potential in the future, but what we really need is we need people to use this and to say, oh, hey, this is great, and I just wish it did. We need to know what that is,
Yeah.
We need to know what things can we add to this that are really going to be helpful, instead of us just guessing and saying, hey, I bet this would be useful.
Hey,
and maybe we're right, maybe we're not.
I got to put you on the spot then and ask, is there a way for people to give you feedback through the app?
So I believe if you go to hit the hamburger menu.
Help and feedback.
Yeah, help and feedback.
I wonder if it's under that. Feature requests? Look at that.
Crazy,
cool.
huh?
Leave a review. Look at that. You got all kinds of stuff. And then there's your technical support. Very helpful.
Yeah. So technical support is an email address that goes into a Jira ticket system, so that and whenever somebody files a ticket there, it actually notifies us on Discord, and so that Ben and I, and also my brother Ray also works with us on this app. He's not full-time on it. He's just part-time, but he's, I think Ray is the most front-end focused of the three of us. I'm very much back-end focused, and Ben's kind of in the middle. So when we're able to all three work on things at the same time, it's really nice how quickly we can start getting things done.
Little mini hackathon.
But the three of us kind of share those responsibilities for monitoring all of that.
I love it.
And then features, there's a lot of stuff there, and people can vote on them. A lot of people have probably felt like we don't pay attention to that, since we haven't done a lot of that. We haven't made a lot of improvements or implemented a lot of the features yet, but that's because we've been working on getting to the point where we can make those changes easier. So zoomable diagrams is implemented in this.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
voice or text to speech is actually a pet project of mine that I've been playing with. Don't have a date or anything on that, but I'm very determined to get it in there, if only because I think it would really help my third son to study. He's struggling with the reading on those. He's 11, and so a lot of those words are just a little bit outside of his comfort zone.
Sure. And then you got the Zoomers saying add a dark mode, of course.
Actually, that one's been done for a long time.
Mode.
I need to figure out why it doesn't filter that out. It really should.
Well, I'll vote for that. Oh, it says done. This suggestion is implemented and released. So there you go,
4 or 5 years ago. So In fact, you're in dark mode.
I am
you can
in
change
dark
it to light mode if you want.
No, sir.
If you go into preferences, you can have it follow the system, or you can have it.
You have to click on your name in the hamburger.
Right or not.
Okay, let me hamburger myself. Account preferences. And
so you can change the font size and then dark mode.
Oh my god! Oh no, this is not where it's at. That's fine. We'll do it the rest of the way in this. Oh no, look at that color palette. No,
my kids give me so much grief whenever they see. I use the auto mode, and my kids give me so much grief whenever they come around and it hasn't quite hit twilight yet, and they're seeing light mode. And then I'm blind.
Dad! Oh god, why I'm blind? Yeah, for sure. All right, what else do we hit here? Anything else you guys need to hit up? I mean, this is really sweet. These are great updates, and I think are gonna sustain this going forward to quicker updates, right? I mean, that's one of the big things with this full, renovation of the app. That's I think, gonna be a really effective thing for everybody. So, anything else we need to do? Well, we got to mention the ICOM. Where's Ray Novak? Shout out to ICOM, sponsored by ICOM there. So make sure we get that in there. Thank you, everybody at ICOM.
I really do need to do a shout out to Ray, because Ray contacted me. I think it was in 2024, and I had just done a full. Or 2024, 2014. It's the same thing, really. It was a year that ended in 4 and started with 2, and those all blur together for me at this point.
Yeah.
So in 2014, I believe it was, and I had just released, it might have been 2013. Anyway, I just released the layout that hamstudy.org is on, which at this point is looking a little dated because it's 10 years old and it really needs to be updated.
I mean, it's still impressive for 10 years. I think it's still pretty good.
Yeah, well, and at the time, it was way above like any other ham radio site. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but I'm not sure how he came across it, but he was apparently impressed enough with it, and he said, "Hey, I'd like to support you guys." And I initially pushed back, and was like, "Well, I mean, I don't want to be one of those apps that's just got banners everywhere, and you can't use the system because it's too busy advertising to you." That's right. Usability to me has always been king on this. But he was very open to, tell me what works, tell me how we can have some visibility without interfering with what you're doing. And I mean, this was back when Signal Stuff was not even covering my server hosting costs.
Yeah.
Their first advertising check bought my first web server, which I only removed from the data center in the last 3 or 4 months. I've been using it for that long.
10 years.
I mean, I have 8 other ones. But
yeah, no doubt you got a heavy load with some of this data you're moving over time, for sure.
But yeah, so ICOM, they stepped up and supported us, and it was their idea. I didn't go to them; they came to me. It was very much on their own initiative, and it was at a time when we weren't that big. That was the version that added study mode. Previous to that, I had practice tests, and I had what we called smart exams, which was an exam that would always give you the questions that you hadn't seen before, or the questions that you'd seen least frequently, which is something that people ask for a lot. And you know why I removed that is after the second or third time that I was helping with a class where they were using my app to study, and I saw someone break down in tears because they'd taken 10 exams in a row and hadn't gotten any better because they still hadn't seen any question twice.
Right.
It is so demoralizing. It seems like such a great idea. But it was not a good way of doing things. I may revisit the idea with some variation at some point, but I really appreciate them for being willing to take a chance on us, long before most people had ever heard of ham study.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think we might have hit everything. Is there anything else we need to touch upon? I think you've got a cool set of upgrades here that, again, just add to already a platform that was really quite conducive to people getting licensed, and obviously have exam tools and everything else. Anything else you want to mention, Ben? We'll start with Ben.
No, I think we went through pretty much everything.
Excellent.
I'm just really excited to have this out because it's been longer than I care to admit since we started working on this rewrite. This is not a new thing. I started working with Richard full time back in April of this year. And we were started on this, we'll say more than 2 years ago. We started on the rewrite. It's been a long time coming. So being able to just get in there and get it done and get it out feels really, really nice. And I'm just excited for people to have it in their hands and hopefully have a better experience.
And so if anybody doesn't get this yet, by the time this video drops, this will be available to you. So you'll be able to access it, and there will be a link in the video description to check it out. Richard, anything you want to mention before we wrap up here?
Just that I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all the support from the Ham Radio Crash Course community. You can ask Ben when I'm needing feedback on ideas. The HRCC Discord is one of my first stopping points. I drop in there, and that's both for ham study, that's for signal stuff when I've got antenna ideas or even sometimes marketing ideas. When I was getting ready for Hamvention, I dropped almost all of our marketing materials in there. It's like, okay, guys, help me make this not sound so dumb.
Well, I love that they're able to help. That's awesome.
But yeah, once we get this out, we've got some really cool stuff planned for future releases. We are going to have to take a break from a bit. I have a almost complete rewrite of the Signal Stuff website. I think probably everybody watching is aware that what pays for us to do this, what let me hire Ben, who has got kids and needs to make a living, is selling those antennas. Like very directly, the income from Signal Stuff supports our software development habit. That's what makes all of this possible. But I have an almost complete rewrite of that website that has been like this close to being done since the beginning of the year. Well, I just have had to put all of these other priorities there. So that's going to be our next thing that we have to focus and get that the rest of the way out. Because currently we're using the WordPress piece of crap site that I threw together in 20 minutes back in 2016.
But let's just show it to him. I've got it. I've got the website right here, and look at this cool little device here. That if you have a radio of a certain brand or type, you can select it, and you'll be able to show the antennas that are just for you. And I think if it breaks, we will fix it. That's a pretty strong message. But take a look at this website, guys. There's going to be all kinds of improvements to it. By the way, Signal Stuff still works. If you go to Google, you can find the same great products. And again, these sales are what fund the advances to Ham Study, the app, the website, and exam tools. So if you got your license online via exam tools, you at least owe it to yourself and owe it to furthering the community of amateur radio by maybe picking up one of these antennas. So I'll say that for you there, Richard. I don't know if that that helps.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we do have the Ham Study app is paid. It's $3.99. But if you think that we can do all of what we're doing with it for $3.99 per install, you seriously underestimate the amount of work that goes into this system. But that's why we're doing it. I often will put off improvements to the antennas because the reason that all of that exists is to support exam tools and Ham Study and other similar types of efforts.
Right.
And it does make for an interesting challenges trying to set priorities. What am I going to spend time on? When I went to make these shirts, I had to figure out how to put 3 brand names on them because just picking one of them didn't really work anymore.
Right.
Because some people know me just as Signal Stuff. Some people know me just from the study thing. Some people know me from the exam tools. And all 3 they synergize, they work together. None of them would be what they are without the other 2, but they're also different enough that they don't live under one name. And that makes for some very interesting challenges sometimes, but it's been just a really fun ride. And it's been amazing to be able to bring Ben on to help me with this more directly. I mean, he's probably helped at least a little bit with every major update that I've talked about through this whole thing. I mean, he's been working with me for that long. But it's been like little things, like guest mode on hamstudy.org. Ben wrote that.
Oh, cool. Right on, right on. Well, you're both an asset to the community, and you've helped probably mint more new hams than I think almost anyone could say at this point, particularly when you get down to things like exam tools. That really is a revolutionary thing that I don't know what would have happened if someone did not step up during the bad times, the dark times of staying at home, if you will, that happened not too long ago.
In fairness, there was a whole community around
of
me.
Course.
You know, I was the one who had the system that was the closest to there. I sort of ended up leading the charge by default, but please don't anyone think that I'm the only person who made that happen. I think it would have happened anyway.
Of course.
If only because you could give remote exams even with paper. It would just be really a pain in the neck.
Yeah. Fair point. There would have been a solution. Hams being hams, there absolutely would have been a solution. But
I'd like to think that I helped to have a much better solution than we would have had otherwise.
I do believe that exam tools is a very nice, elegant solution for what we needed at that time, and it worked out very well. So, again, thank you both. Ben, Richard, thanks for taking some time to be on the Ham Radio Crash Course and explain some fun little stories along with the new cool updates for the hamstudy.org phone, tablet app. Oh, did we mention phone, tablets? That's the primary, what we're Android and iOS.
Tablets now on the iOS app. If you've got an Apple Silicon Mac, you can load it there. I do want to get it released as a desktop app as well. We have actually an app on the Windows Store, but it's a little bit out of date because updating that one is such a pain. We're going to try to fix that. And I'm working towards getting it to where we can have an app that doesn't have to be tied to the app stores. So maybe we could have a standalone desktop app as well.
Nice.
A lot of things in the works, but of course we can only do so many things at once. And I think
let's be real. When you look at the numbers, it's mobile, it's tablets, it's phones. That's where 99% of the people are.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thanks again. I appreciate you guys hanging on and hanging out with me and talking about these fun updates. And I'll say a hearty 73.
Thanks, Josh. It's been a fun time.
Josh.